don't think my ticker has ever been that stressed pre 9 a.m. in my life ever, but we are across the line. We have a world champion. We will talk about it in just a minute. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. This is season 7. This is now episode number 46. It's our 2025 Abu Dhabi GP. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. Boy, well, we had a finale there, Cody, man. Tense to literally the last lap, but how you hanging?
I am doing well. I actually had a pretty easy time getting up for the race, and probably because I was very excited. And now I'm a little sad, but I'm not as sad as I thought I would be, honestly. I think things wrapped up pretty well. So we're going to get into all that. But yeah, just a tiny bit bummed.
I don't blame you. I mean, for me, the biggest feeling is relief more than there was a minute of ecstasy, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But I think for me, the biggest thing was relief in that we didn't completely blow this thing, because I thought for a very long time in the last couple of weeks that we had. But man, Max Verstappen's a hell of a talent. I'm going to just say that right now. That dude just keeps coming at you. And he was just brilliant today. I mean, we're going to talk about his race. We'll talk about the top 3. We'll talk about the other 17 that weren't involved, even though the broadcast was very, very centered on the top 3, as they should have been. But we'll talk about all that in just a little bit. But if you have found our show, welcome along for the last time in 2025. We are glad you're here, glad you're joining us. You can find us. Where do we put stuff out? Somehow, some way, I managed to stay on X and not want to throw myself off a building. But I do post stuff there. We do post stuff to Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're looking at and you enjoy what you're listening to, if you want to give us a like, or if you want to subscribe to the channel, we would be most appreciative of that. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that type of stuff, if you want to give us a 5-star review, what will that do? It just helps us come up a little bit better in search results for F1 related content like this. You can email the show anytime, even when we're not broadcasting. outlapf1@gmail.com will get your thoughts to us. Thank you so much to our fine supporters. These people have been with us through the entire season. You all know the list by now. So one last time to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, whose lucky jacket he thinks helped Lando get across the line, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that esteemed list and support us as we go into our venture next year, there is an Anchor page. It does ask for a small little monetary donation. Do you have to give us any money? Of course not. We're just happy that you're listening, to be honest with you. But if you wanted to do that, we will, of course, accept it graciously. And then we'll just take those funds and put it right back into the show. Investing in new technology, keeping things relevant, microphones, cameras, ways we can do remote broadcasts, mobile internet, all of that, all those sorts of fun stuff that we've used throughout the course of the season. And of course, when we go to F1 races like the one we did in Austin. So that's where it would go. All right, particulars out of the way. If you've been under an F1 rock, I would suggest you go watch the last race of the season before continuing, because we're about to blow it for you. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2025 Formula One World Champion is Lando Norris at the end of the day. I will start with the headline of the day. And oh my God, talk about winning ugly. I gave you permission to win ugly and you took it. Lando Norris did just enough to finally get over the line and secure his first Drivers World Championship. Congratulations to him. I was telling Cody, he crossed the line. I made it about 5 seconds into his celebration, then I lost it. I was bawling like a kid. Did not care. And that's a moment I'll never forget. But oh my God, we finally got there. Wow. Cody, what you got?
My headline of the day is just pretty much exactly what happened. Lando Norris is the drivers' champion of the world. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit disappointed. But Max Verstappen brought it far closer than I think anybody expected, even just a few weeks ago. I think he had a fantastic season. For that matter, I think Oscar Piastri had a pretty fantastic season as well, and started pulling it back together there right at the end. But at the end of the day, Lando Norris does come home with the hardware by 2 points over Max Verstappen.
The equivalent of a basket, 2 points.
Yes, yeah.
It's all it was.
As you said, just barely getting there.
The whole race, I'm just thinking he's just got to finish P3. He's just got to finish P3. And then when, we'll talk about it. Let's set the stage. Let's do qualifying, and then we'll start to talk about the race. So we rewind back really quickly to Saturday. Lando had basically finished in the top spot in the practice sessions, but Max's pace definitely was there. So going into qualifying, it was definitely all to play for. And that qualifying saw. All right, Alpine will be happy that this season is over. I think Pierre Gasly even said on the radio, take the car and put it on the other side of the campus away from me. I never want to see it again. P20 and P19 were Franco Colapinto and Pierre Gasly, respectively. Nico Hülkenberg and the Kick Saubers had some great moments. Qualifying this Saturday was not one of them, and despite early good practice pace. So this was kind of a shocker. So out in Q1, was Alex Albon, and P16. Another guy who was just going to be happy that these regs are over with, Lewis Hamilton and the Ferrari. Wow. Advancing through the Q2, but going no farther. P15 was Lance Stroll. P14, Kimi Antonelli. P13 was Liam Lawson. P12, Carlos Sainz. And P11 was Ollie Behrman. Your top 10 from 10 to 1. And proves to be kind of a pivotal P10. Yuki Tsunoda and the Red Bull. Hello, how you doing? P9 was Isaac Hadjar. P8, Esteban Ocon flying the flag for the Haas team here. P7 was Gabby Bortoletto. So the Kick Saubers were good. It just makes the Hulkenberg quality effort just that much more astounding that it didn't go well. P5 was P6 was Fernando Alonso. P5 was Charles Leclerc. P4 was George Russell. And here come your championship 3. P3 was Oscar Piastri. Only just less than a tenth in it. Just in front of him was Lando Norris. But P1, when he decided it was go time, Max Verstappen brought it, man. A 122.207 pole position for the man from the Netherlands. All right, Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying.
For me, it was mostly I was surprised by just the margin that Max Verstappen took pole by. I was not expecting him to take pole at all. And then he goes out there in Q3, puts in a monster lap that it looked like, I don't even think his first really good lap was topped. He just improved upon it.
He improved it.
But he improved it, yes. But I think even that last lap would have still been pole,
yes,
which is really awesome. He set that one, and it was so far out in front of everyone else. I was like, holy shit. And then saw, okay, well, the McLarens were on used tires, so let's see how they do with fresh tires. And they didn't get there. And then Max went out and did it again, but even better. So at that point, I was thinking, God, like I don't know if he's going to do it, but he is certainly putting himself in the best position to take it if anything happens.
Yeah, I mean, for the at least for the Lando side, at least at this point, it was a scruffy qualifying session. It just, it looked like he was easy and free in the practices, and then we get to qualifying, and then suddenly, I don't know if it was the nerve. I'm sure it's probably some of this. The nerves kick in. I'm trying to wrestle every little bit out of the car that was there. Kind of fortunate, I think, to be starting in front of his teammate, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, he ends up having to burn a second set of tires just to get out of Q1 because the track ramped up, and Max was basically only one of the championship protagonists really to have the extra set of tires. Yuki Tsunoda making it into Q3 proves to be pivotal, at least on Max's first lap. Even though Yuki does not set a time, he did provide Max with a tow. That is a legal thing that can happen. We've seen McLarens do it in other races too. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. But Max went out on even the second lap without a tow and bested his first lap. So you can call whatever you want on that. But Max was obviously a very worthy pole sitter there. 2/10 clear of Lando. It was, to me, very significant that Lando got in front of Piastri. So that kind of set it up to where, okay, all you got to do is finish in third. You've got the buffer behind you. I wasn't sure, at least going into Sunday, what they were going to do. But you felt a little bit better simply because the team had told, the main mantra is don't hit your teammate. You don't expect Max to be able to do anything from the front in the first turn. But, everyone, the second that order came out, all you heard was the 8,000 different scenarios of who could run into whom and when. Yeah. And it actually got a little much for me, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, Cody, what's your thought?
It definitely got to be a little much for me too. And Max wasn't helping things by when they asked what he was going to do. He's just like, I'm going to go all out. And that's all I can do. And of course, then everyone's like, oh God, he's going to fucking just run everyone off the road. You're talking about scruffy qualifying sessions. Or Russell had a little bit of a scruffy qualifying session. He looked like he was going to wipe out there a couple times during qualifying. He had a couple of really big corrections, especially coming out of his final Q3 lap. Big wobble back and forth coming out of that last turn. Still ends up qualifying best of the rest. And last one I want to say on here, Lewis Hamilton out in Q1 again. I am sure that he is ready to put that Ferrari from this year in the bin. Just leave it all behind, take a nice 3-month vacation, and hope to God that Ferrari brings something a little more competitive next year.
And it's not only Hamilton that's going to feel that way. I mean, Leclerc's been quoted in some of his post-race to basically giving almost an ultimatum to the team saying, look, you guys got to produce in 26. Otherwise, I have to start reevaluating my options for 2027. While we now know the 2026 driver lineup, I would not be surprised if even by the end of the tests, the driver market talk is going to start to heat up relatively quickly, because there's a lot of pressure on a lot of these teams, and Ferrari's going to be one of them. They, by any metric, disappointed this season, simply because they were P2 in the constructors last year. They were one Lando Norris DNF or bobble away from
taking the Lando Norris DNF. They were a Carlos Sainz passing him for the win away.
Right, exactly. They were literally right there on the tail last year of taking the constructors title. So to go from that to now solidly in P4 in the constructors is a problem, and just no form. And once they had to deal with their disqualification in China, I don't think it was ever the same car, because they think they had to make too many compromises and they never quite were able to bring it back. And then it comes out later on that they kind of, along with Williams, just kind of said, well, this is our car for better or for worse, and we're not going to really develop it. And as you can
all went into next year.
Yeah. Like I said, they all went into next year. So it better be worth it. If you're going to make that decision, you're going to take all this pain, and this has been painful to watch for a lot of the Tifosi this season. You got to hope that the payout's coming on the other end. So, but anyway, yeah. I mean, other notable things, I thought Gabby Bortoletto and the Kick Sauber, I thought the Kick Saubers could have been the early foil. I mean, they showed up on Friday practice and they were like second and third and, right there. And okay, is this just, Friday running? And it just kind of turned out to be that, at least for the Hulkenberg side. But Bortoletto in 7th, Ocon in 8th, Hajar in 9th, and then even Yuki Tsunoda getting in there was significant, even though this would be his last weekend. But all right, we get to the Sunday race, and I think you can kind of divide this up into two categories: the top 3 and the rest of them. Cody, which one would you like to cover first?
You got to cover the top 3 first.
All right, so let's
where all the meat's at.
Dig right into it. Your podium finishers. If you haven't watched this race, now is your last time to turn us off before you come back. Max Verstappen takes the win. Oscar Piastri comes in second. Lando Norris comes in third. The all vaunted turn 1 turned out to be a whole lot of really nothing. Max got off the line, covered Lando off. Lando settled into second. Piastri behind him in third. The top 3 were pretty much running away. The first bit of drama that happens is, I think, in turn 9. All of a sudden, here's Oscar Piastri, who started the race on a set of hard tires, goes swooping around the outside of Lando Norris and gets promoted to P2. Now, when we were talking in the pre-show, I was telling Cody, I was surprised in the moment, and I wasn't after I kind of read some stuff. And here's kind of my theory. I think that was almost planned. And I'm going to tell you why, because Piastri being on a different strategy solved a lot of papaya rules problems right from the start. 1, you let Oscar have his best shot at winning the championship, which is to go out and win the race. So he's motivated to go after Max. 2, it prevented Max from doing any of the slowdown tactics that we saw Lewis Hamilton employ in 2016, because there was a threat from Piastri, who was not going to, he was going to make a move if it came down to that. If Max tried to back Piastri up, Piastri was more than willing to take a move and take either himself out or Max out in order to get the move done, if it was going to happen that way, because he basically really didn't have anything to lose. And then it kind of puts Lando in a position, well, yeah, he can't go any further back. But if you subscribe to the theory that the Max car is really the only one faster than the 2 McLarens, he should, assuming nothing else goes weird or goes wrong, should be in the best position to come home. So we end up, that was the order for the while. We get to the first pit stop. Lando actually pits first of the three of them, puts him back, I think, all the way into P9, which meant that he had to make a whole lot of overtakes. I think he was at the back of a DRS train of four drivers. Manages to clear Kimi Antonelli, that Carlos Sainz, then Liam Lawson, who actually came back at him once. So the timing made it look a little more closer than it really was when I actually saw it. But the move, the only really the mega drama I think of this race comes when he comes up on Max Verstappen's teammate, that being Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki Tsunoda employed some tactics that are not exactly kosher. He was weaving along the straight. He forces Lando way to the inside. In fact, so much so that actually Lando puts four wheels off the track. That ended up going to the stewards. And for once, we got common sense. Yuki Tsunoda forced Lando off the track, and they didn't issue two penalties, which is what I almost thought they were going to do there for a half a minute. They found Yuki Tsunoda guilty of it. They gave him a 5-second penalty. They said no further action on the Lando going off the track because he was forced off. But it was a heart and mouth moment, at least for me. It was very scary on the onboard because the wall is right there. There was not a lot of margin in it, but Lando managed to get it pulled off. But Cody, your thoughts on that sequence of the race? That was probably, if there was the most significant overtaking, that was it.
Yeah, I started to wonder if it was actually possible when Oscar Piastri got around Lando. In hindsight, it does make sense based on what you're saying here that, they're trying to keep everyone happy because Oscar needs to beat Max for the win to even have a shot if something happens and Lando retires or finishes outside of the points. So you're letting him get a shot at that. It did take away really any margin for error from Lando. But, we keep talking about that they need to trust the execution. And you know what? Lando went out there and had a pretty flawless race. Did everything he needed to do. Had some awesome overtakes there through traffic. Some really smooth ones. I think he had like a double overtake.
It was the Sainz Lawson one. All of a sudden going into the chicane, like he pulls way to the inside, and again, this is the thing I always used to critique him. I'm like, dude, when you make your pass, would you just get to the goddamn inside? Well, he listened. He got on his ass way to the inside. He gets by Sainz, and then just takes Lawson along for the ride. Lawson gets the DRS back going into that spoon corner, has a half a move, but it really wasn't to be. And then once out of DRS, then that was kind of it. The early laps, right when Piastri got past Lando, also were pretty tense because Leclerc was within DRS for about the first
that was
8.
Surprising how long he stayed with him.
Yeah, the first 8 or 9 laps.
Like if he gets around him, that's going to go way off plan.
I was going to say, then we're talking like box him now and mega undercut, and Lord only knows what options that opens. And it took a while to get him back out of DRS. Like it took most of that first stint.
I think he only got close enough like one time, though, to get Lando to make a defensive move. Never really was in like a clear position to try to make an overtake. And, all he had to do was keep Leclerc behind him for a little while before, you start running into the things like tires overheating and dirty air, making your tires wear down too much. And they were talking about problems with graining. And so, it did take a while, but eventually he did start to open up that gap. I was a little surprised at when they pitted him, because they did pit him into traffic. So anyone who's listening, I was messaging Andy quite a bit throughout this race and receiving no replies.
I warned you I was going dark.
Yep. He's just focused on what's going on. But I messaged you and said, I don't really know about pitting now. And then he goes on to make all those moves in traffic. I'm like, okay, that was pretty slick. The only one that even made it really hard on him was Lawson did try to make the move back. Didn't work. And I got to say, very disappointed with Yuki Tsunoda. He had the gall to come on the radio to be like, just leave me to it. I know what I'm doing. For one thing, he didn't hold up Lando at all. And for another thing, he almost ran him into the wall and got a penalty for it, which pretty much took him out of contention to do anything else to help for the rest of the race. So, pretty disappointing final outing.
And then in classic Yuki radio, when he was told that he had the penalty. It's just what we kind of come to expect at this point.
I was disappointed at his lack of putting up really any defense I would have been less disappointed had he not come on the radio and been like, oh, leave me to it. But yeah, he did not do much. I was also just slightly worried there for a minute when they said that they were both under investigation and that Lando was under investigation for making the overtake off the track and gaining an advantage. And I was sitting there going, you gotta be freaking kidding me. This is clear as day that he was forced off the track. Like, if they call this a penalty, that is the biggest bullshit. And for once, yeah, like you said, common sense reigned supreme. They made the right call in everybody's opinion, I think, even the most diehard of Max fans. But end up going into the later sequence. Max ended up running the one stop. The McLarens did the two-stop strategy, pretty much trying to give, for Piastri anyway, trying to give him fresh tires to go try to catch back up to Max.
Well, Piastri ended up doing a one. Piastri ended up doing a one.
Oh, he did do the one?
They held him out for 36 laps on the hard. After Max comes in,
oh, that's right. He went to the mediums.
And then waited until Max actually overtook him for the lead and to finally pit.
Right. You're right.
And
my bad on that one.
No. Lando, and then Lando ended up getting put into a two-stop because Leclerc boxed, I think, on lap 35. Mm-hmm. It was right before they would have probably wanted to box Piastri anyway. So,
and they had broadcast on their team radio that, look, if Charles pits, we're going to cover him off. And they did just that. They executed all their pit stops very well. Pretty much everyone had a good pit stop day, I think. But yeah, Max goes for the one stop. He's on older tires, but Piastri was not catching him nearly quickly enough. The one thing that I found during the sequence to be just a little surprising was after Piastri finally pit and put on his mediums, there was enough of a gap there for Max to pit on fresh tires as well. And I was a little surprised that they didn't do that because I thought, look, the way things are standing, you're not going to win the championship. If you've got anything left to do, to me, it was box then, have the fresher tires, be only right in front of Piastri at this point, and, therefore not too far in front of Lando, and take this opportunity to try to back him up. Like, if Piastri gets by you, you're not going to win the championship anyway, even if you take the win as things are standing. But I guess they didn't want to risk Piastri potentially getting by during the backing up sequence, because then if Lando did retire, he would take the championship. I guess they didn't want to risk that, and they were just putting it on, an act of God causing Lando to retire, his engine blowing up, or a rogue mistake or something. Was not to be. Max Verstappen takes the win, but the two McLarens, Piastri and Norris, come across to wrap up the podium, and that's all Lando needed. He
just enough.
What he needed.
Just enough.
It was kind of sad watching those last couple laps wind down and feeling the inevitable coming. And all I could think of was like, man, I really hope the Red Bull isn't like god awful next year. Because, I'm sitting there eventually when they get on the podium and they're doing the Dutch national anthem. All I was thinking was like, man, how long is it going to be before we see this again? Like, it could be that the Red Bull car next year is just god awful. We already hear that they're probably going to be behind on the power unit side of things. So, who knows when, if ever, we're going to get another Max championship. I got to say, he went out in style. He did everything he could. Kudos to McLaren for working the perfect strategy, really, to pretty much keep Max from being able to do anything to back him up or mess with them. Really, they executed their strategy between the two drivers very well.
For the first time in like a solid month, as soon as Piastri gets by him, I kind of sat back and went, I get it. I finally get it. It makes sense. Yes, that's what you do. You let him go. You take any papaya on papaya contact out of the equation. You keep Oscar motivated because he has to be motivated to go after Max. That's what he has to do. And you just do. And McLaren did what they've been great at throughout basically the Zach Brown era, which was marking who's behind him. And I finally said, you know what? You can finally do what you're great at and just say, where's Leclerc? And cover him off. And that's what they did. It turned out not to be Russell. We thought maybe in qualifying it could be Russell, but as you said in the qualifying, he had some really snappy qualifying laps, especially in Q3. But I mean, throughout the practices and throughout, like, you thought he was going to be the foil. You were not expecting it to be Leclerc in the Ferrari. of anybody who's, and to compliment Ferrari here, their race pace was a hell of a lot better than their qualifying pace or their setup laps, because they looked nowhere. Lewis Hamilton obviously looked nowhere, but Lewis Hamilton actually rallies and finishes 8th
Mm-hmm.
in it. So we'll take you through the rest of the field. Charles Leclerc comes home in P4, George Russell P5, Fernando Alonso flying the flag for Aston Martin probably made the biggest thing out of turn 1 that turned out really not to be anything, but he finishes P6. Esteban Ocon for Haas comes home in P7. Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, like I said, from the back of the grid, comes forward all the way to P8. Nico Hulkenberg also did the same thing. So that kick Sauber pace was not a mirage. It was obviously real. So 2 big points for Hulkenberg there. P10 finishes out Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, despite getting a 5-second penalty post-race for some, apparently the move of the race was, let's just weave down the straight and see, fishtail. It wasn't just Tsunoda that was doing it. Behrman got a penalty for it. Stroll got a penalty for it. But
I watched the replay for Behrman's, and it was not nearly as egregious as Tsunoda's. I was a little surprised that they gave him a penalty for it, actually, but
I mean, that one surprised me. And also it was like, I think on the first lap too.
If anything, it looked more like a late move than a weaving thing to me, because he was weaving a little bit, but he kind of like moved back over right in the braking zone. I think maybe that was kind of what did him in.
Yeah, more than likely. I tend to agree. Bortoleto comes home in P11, and P12 turns out to be Ollie Behrman. Your back markers for this race: P13 was Carlos Sainz. P14 ends up being Yuki Tsunoda after the penalty. P15, despite having a great season, I think for a rookie, not the best finish, was Kimi Antonelli. P16 was Alex Albon. P17 was Isaac Hadjar. The Racing Bulls, not a great weekend, but they do finish P. And P18, Liam Lawson. And like I said, the 2 Alpines bumping up the back of the field. Pierre Gasly telling him on the radio, I never want to see this car again. Farewell to Renault as a constructor, and farewell. Well, the Alpine name will carry on, but it'll be the 2 Alpines.
Farewell to them being an engine manufacturer.
Yes, they will take the Mercedes power unit and probably be very happy to have it. So that's your Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Not the most, like I said, not the most exciting of races in terms of things happening. It didn't have that catalyst moment, but it was tense throughout. I mean, I kept looking over at the clock going, all right, by 8:30, we're going to know. And it was like 8:12. And I'm like, all right, 15 minutes, here we go. And, you just wanted to get it over. For me, it wanted to get it over with, but it was relief. And like I was telling Cody, I said, absolute bald for a good 5 minutes. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Can't believe it. I heard the radio and then I just lost it.
I think it was also pure relief for Lando Norris. The nice thing about this is first time champion. These celebrations are particularly heartwarming. He's out there with his parents who are giving him hugs and kisses. And, Lando Norris is crying. And I did love it when they were interviewing. He's like, I'm not crying. When he comes over the radio the first time and they're like, you're champion, and he's giving his message back and he wraps it up with, I'm not crying. I did think it was very heartwarming. He got big congratulations from everybody. Max and Oscar took it like champs and were, congratulatory. Yeah, it was very nice to see. Good way to wrap up this era of ground effect regulations. I think a lot of drivers are happy to see these regulations go.
Yeah.
And, I guess Lando Norris can take it with him that even if McLaren falls off in these new regulations for whatever reason, at least he got one.
Yeah. I mean, it was the whole plan. And I've said this a few times before on the show. The whole plan was always supposed to be about this season. This was what they had been building to since Andrea Stella kind of took over and rejiggered the team after the kind of the false dawn that was 2021, where we thought, well, they won the one race in Italy and they thought that they were coming into it. And then they had these new regulations. They come into it in 22 and it just didn't work. And the first part of 23, and if you've watched the Netflix show, you could just see how disappointed everybody was at the start of it. Zach Brown were out there trying to say, look, we know it's going to be a struggle these first few races. Give us time. We got to fix the car. And it was just kind of a countdown to when is that fix going to happen? When is it finally going to turn around? And it does. In Austria of 23, was really the first race you could see it with the big upgrade package. And from that point forward, everything else that they brought to the car, even the first part of last year, was still catching up and making up for that 2022 mistake. Because, they didn't really bring forth the car they wanted until 24. And it's there at the Miami GP that Lando finally solves it, manages to win. Yeah, he had some help from the safety car, but you know what? He had a lot of other stuff go wrong in his career up to that point. So from that point on, it was a race winning car. And I think the whole team, Lando, Oscar, learned how rarefied the air is up at the top of this table. And it's not an easy thing, man. There's a different vibe. It's a different way that the media treats you. It's a different way that you come into the weekends. I always tried to set expectations to say, okay, I just want to see 2 cars in the top 5. Well, that was probably not good enough late in these last few rounds. 2 cars in the top 5, not enough to get home. Like I said, it was just enough. Goddamn, Max Verstappen scared the shit out of me. Because once he got
good
rolling,
thing there's not a 25th race this year. Because
because I think if there was, this would be a much different podcast. Because that dude got on a roll, and you can understand. And I've said before, I thought the best stretch of driving that I've ever watched was Lewis Hamilton in 2016 after the engine failure. I think this run that Max did, 1, it's longer, and 2, it's just as consistent, if not more so. I think this rivals, if not even overtakes it, to be honest with you.
Since the second summer break, starting with the Netherlands race, Max has been on the podium every race, every Grand Prix, I should say. I guess he wasn't on the podium every sprint race, but on the podium every Grand Prix for the last third of the season. And with 5 or how many wins did he wrap up with? 8. So I think he had 6 wins in this last third of the season. One of my, I'm a big meme guy. One of my favorite Formula One memes that came out that kept popping up as we went later and later into the season is it's a car mirror that says objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
I've seen
that. Max.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
definitely made.
And then it's Crofty made the analogy, ironically enough, when we weren't listening to it because we were live at COTA, the T-Rex getting closer, the Jurassic Park, the T-Rex coming up against, and that's what he is when he gets on a roll and he's confident, and you could tell that whatever Red Bull infighting got resolved and they all got on the same page. And once they started listening to the feedback that he was giving them, the Red Bull car, I think on par, was quicker in the second half of this season.
At a lot of tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no matter what you think of Lando Norris, he had to earn this.
Yes.
Against, one of the best that we've seen in the sport for the last 5 years. Max has been pretty unstoppable, and he had to take the fight to Max this last third of the season and hold on to the championship, and he did. So my congratulations to him. He really did have to go out there and earn it. Yeah,
I mean, it was the to me, it's always the ones where maybe he didn't get the victory, but he got almost like the dirty second, like COTA. That was a not great weekend. They had the double crash in the sprint, but he gets it back together, pulls it enough to get P2 on the grid and P2 in the race. Mexico, a track that McLaren had never even sniffed a victory before, managed to hook it up and actually had one of his more dominant ones. The drive in Brazil, and it's just so crappy that we can't celebrate the pole lap in Vegas because of the freaking disqualification thing. Because that would have been the moment that I would have said, that's when he did it. That's when he took it around in the rain. There was a lot of wet racing this season, and Lando came out in front of it in Australia and in Great Britain, in Vegas up until that point. Mm-hmm. When it got wet, Lando came to play, and that was always kind of a bugaboo of his since the Russia 2021 thing. And one last point that I'll say before we take the break, the ungodly symmetry that we had from the first race of the season, where it's Lando just making it enough in the rain in Australia, only won by 2/10, and then all the way to here where he wins by just 2 points with Max breathing down his ass. Yeah, I mean, it's you almost can't write it, you can't script it, and maybe that's why we love it. But oh my God.
Yeah, Woo! Netflix is licking their chomps.
Oh my God.
This season.
It's I have a funny feeling that every fandom is going to be pissed because it's probably going to highlight all of the negative stuff and not enough of the positive stuff from what we're talking about. because what are you going to see in the Netflix? You're going to see the disqualification. You're going to see
You can see the
the
Spain incident with
Qatar.
Max.
You're going to see the Qatar thing, and then on the Max side, you're going to see the Spain thing and all that, and it's just going to be dripping. And it's not enough about what these guys didn't do. It's about, to me, I'm more of a celebrator of what they did. And I know there was some reporter that Max got pissed off about in the post race, and to me, that's not the time to ask that question. Maybe it's later on, maybe it's after the FIA gala or something like that. But in the moment, Max just won the race. You just celebrate that. He was a valiant fighter all the way to the end. I know as just a Formula One fan, my respect level for his racecraft went up a ton this season, watching him as closely as I've had to watch him. Like I will always have a very, very high level of respect for what that guy can do in a race car. And it's not only Formula One cars, it's other categories of things. Like he's going to go in his GT3 and sim and probably go take a pole somewhere else now. But, and we don't know what 2026 is going to have. So, but I do think that he's going to drag whatever that Red Bull car is going to have in it at the beginning of next season. So, yeah, lots of stuff, lots of places to go. But end of this season is finally here. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap it on up?
Just that I thought it wrapped up pretty nicely with a bow. There wasn't anything wild and wacky to bend any fandom out of shape in this race, despite the fact that Piastri did not get the win in Qatar. It was nice to see over these last couple races him recover his form.
Yep.
On podium here in the last two races, because it was really disappointing to see his slump of form this last third of the season. So I'm happy that he appears that maybe he's gotten some of his mojo back, and hopefully he can take that into next year and be an even stronger competitor for the championship. Obviously, I hope the same thing for Max, but he's already got 4 under his belt, so if he has a shitty year or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah.
I haven't had a chance to even give really Oscar Piastri the proper commiserations yet. That's a kid who's got an incredibly bright future ahead of him. The fact that his is only his third season and he was one race really away from a world championship already is a testament to the talent that kid has. He has this amazing, he's got maybe young and stupid enough in him still to make some absolutely incredible overtakes that I've watched that guy make.
Oh, we've seen some wild ones.
Some ones where you just go, one, how did he not crash? And two, he did that there in that corner. You don't see people try anything there. And it sucked that he lost it for a while, but then it definitely was a track specific thing. And I think it's just experience in the different places you go that are in F1 that you don't go to in your junior categories. You saw when it was kind of the flyaway races where he struggled a little bit more. And then once he kind of got back to the races where he's had experience and everything else, he got better again. And, he's kind of, him and the Qatar track should just be, he should win every freaking race there. And it's just amazing that he hasn't. And then here to see him back on form. And it was building like an Oscar Piastri weekend where, he was a little bit off in the practices, but then here come the qualifying and there he was. And he has that uncanny ability to just kind of turn it back on when it's time to go. And he uses those practices in a lot of a different way, I think, just to kind of learn what he can't do. And then once he figured out what he can't do, I go, oh, now here's what I can do. So, I mean, that's a kid with just as a McLaren team guy, I am thrilled to have this driver lineup. Let's not take each other out anymore, but they're when they work together, man, it's incredible. And then the constructor standings reflect that. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We will come back. We'll re-rack. We will shake out where all of this ended up. We have our final driver standings. We have our final constructor standings. Then we're going to open it up to your thoughts in the fan email segment. We've got all of our regulars are here. And I just want to take a note to say thank you to these 3 individuals. We will give them their own kudos when we get there, but the fact that these people wake up with us and watch races and interact with us is just kind of an amazing thing. You guys literally are the reason we've kept this thing going, is to enjoy the interaction that we have with you guys. So we're going to talk about we'll react. We'll do what we always do. We're going to react to your takes on what we saw this weekend. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk about some predictions. Cody, you had yourself a hell of a weekend, man. You wiped the floor with me. But we'll talk about how well you did when we come on back. You won't want to miss, especially the fan email segment. You won't want to miss that. All right, welcome back on in. This is season 7, episode number 46. It's a lot of episodes, man. We got there. We got ourselves across the line. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. This is our 2025 Abu Dhabi GP review show. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up talking about the Abu Dhabi GP that was, and now Lando Norris being crowned the world champion. It just sounds weird to say that. Woo! Like every
That'd be
time
a
we
good
would
feeling,
talk
though.
about it, like I would have to kind of shy away from it. Like, well, if he does this, he'll be the world champion. And I didn't really want to say it because I didn't want to jinx it, because I live in Chicago and we are the places of curses and weird shit that happens
Yeah, no
to the
kidding.
people and the teams we support. So you never know. It's been a tense 3 weeks on this end, I'll just tell you that much. But for the final time, Cody, I will let you handle the drivers as you always do, and I will handle the teams. Where did it all shake out?
All right, your final driver standings for the 2025 season are Lando Norris, as we said, coming away with the Drivers' Championship for McLaren. He finishes the season with 423 points. Max Verstappen coming up just shy in second place for Red Bull Racing. He finishes just 2 points behind Lando with 421 points. And Oscar Piastri in third, not far behind himself. He did have a shot at it this race, was not to be. Comes in third place for McLaren at 410 points. And then the rest have fallen off of the Drivers' Championship for a little while now, but had respectable seasons, no doubt. George Russell, best of the rest, in fourth place for Mercedes at 319 points, and a couple wins on the season for him as well to be proud of. Charles Leclerc in fifth place for Ferrari, coming off of their pretty disappointing season, to be said, but he still manages to get fifth place. Fortunately, a winless season for him. He finishes the season with 242 points. And Lewis Hamilton manages to get sixth place in the points for Ferrari, finishes the season with 156 points. Unfortunately for Lewis, the only thing he's got to really take away from this season is that China sprint race win that he got. Unfortunately for him, no Grand Prix podiums or wins to speak of this year. Hopefully that changes for him next year. Seventh place, Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes finishes the season with 150 points, so just 6 points shy of the 7-time champion that he replaced at Mercedes. I would say that is a very respectable rookie season. He comes out of this with some podiums as well. Alexander Albon had a bit of a, I wouldn't even really say a renaissance season. He's been doing great at Williams for a little while now, but Alex Albon, eighth place for Williams with 73 points, and his teammate Carlos Sainz making up for what was a bit of a rocky start to his Williams career. He has a much better, probably like last third of the season. A couple podiums for him. So ninth place for Carlos Sainz, 64 points, and wrapping up the top 10, Fernando Alonso.
He got
Sneaks
it
into 10th place for Aston Martin with 56 points. Unfortunately, the double points finish of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, as we're going to get to when you do the team standings, was not enough to move them up, just barely in the team standings. But those are your driver standings. Go ahead and take it away for the team standings.
Yeah. Well, we know what P1 has been for a while. That's been McLaren. They finished the season on 833 points. P2, best of the rest, I suppose, would be Mercedes with 469 points. They remained clear in spite of the late charge from, of all teams, Red Bull, or Max Verstappen and company, who finished the season on 451 points. P4 is Ferrari. We talked about their expectation coming into the season and kind of the disappointment, but they slipped down to P4 in the constructors. They finish on 398 points. P5, team doing it with glue and weird stuff and trying to patch together their cars all season. They got it done this season. Williams should be proud of this effort with a car that they did not develop intentionally. Comes home in P5 in the constructors, 137 points for them. The race for P6 came down to, I think it was a half of a second, I think, in the end, because it's Racing Bulls who finish on 92. P6 Fernando Alonso and P10 Lance Stroll are just not enough to catch them. As P7 turns out to be Aston Martin. They finished the season on 89 points. P8 is Haas, a respectable season for them, coming home with 79 points. Very respectable season, even though it's only good for one place up in the constructors, is P9 Kick Sauber. Nico Hulkenberg podium. Great season. Gabby Bortoletto having some good turns of form. I think a lot better than they all anticipated. Them going into Audi is, I think their momentum is a lot better than what we all thought they were going to be going in the beginning of this season for sure. So they should be proud. Jonathan Wheatley is building something along with the Audi brass there. So yeah, look out for those guys in the next rules set. They finished the season on 70 points. P10, the best worst team ever for the last time. That will be Alpine. Finish the season thanks to Pierre Gasly on 22 points. All right. Well, you have heard our takes on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and kind of the season in general. It's now time to open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend. Got our regulars here. Like I said before, it's thrilling that we get this interaction. We get to do this. You guys have been great all season. Thank you so much for your continued loyalty, for the support of the show, and for interacting with us, because if it wasn't for this part of it, you really don't want to do it.
Might as well be talking to airwaves,
Right. Like I said, like I can talk to a wall and I can talk into a microphone and maybe someone listens to it. But the fact that you guys listen back or respond back, it's the better part of it. So there's great things in the F1 community, and you three particularly are three mega fans, and it's been an honor to get your feedback all year. So one more time, Cody, what do we got?
Our first fan email comes from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, Lando, champion of the world. What a drive. Did what he had to do. Charles was a huge threat all race, but Lando did it. McLaren made it hard. Yes, they did. Max and Oscar made it harder, but he did it. Well done to Max for winning the race, but not impressed with Yuki. You can see why he's been dropped. Final ever Sauber watch, technically, yes. Gabriel dropped out of the points at the end, but Nico ends Sauber's time with a point. Bring on Audi. Alonso watch, got some good points, and was again the key to Aston Martin. Maybe next year will be it, but you never know. I would be totally on board for an Alonso renaissance here. And lastly, what a season. Probably not as enjoyable as 2024, aka the excitement levels, but it was great to watch. Thank you guys for the podcast. I wish I had football to look forward to, but all my teams keep losing, so bring on March and the return of F1. And, in the past, I've had that same feeling where, our American football, Bears, for us, they have sucked a lot of the last bunch of years. So I definitely know that feeling of not having any good sports to look forward to. But even with, Chicago sports actually doing kind of all right at the moment, I'm still looking forward to F1 in March.
91 days. 91 days. They mentioned it.
Very much excited for the unknown that comes with these regulation changes. It will certainly be interesting to see how the pecking order slots in. But yes, a lot of the stuff here we did touch on already. Charles Leclerc was a pretty good threat to Lando early on. I do kind of wonder if he had maybe tried to make a more brazen dive bomb, could things have turned out different? I don't really think so. I think Lando would have gotten it back probably in the pit stop sequence anyway, but we could talk about what could have been all day.
Yeah.
Also not impressed with Yuki. I think he had probably more than a fair shake at Formula One. And, I wish him luck in his time as a test driver and anything else he does going forward. But yeah, really, I think, I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare the season to last year in some ways. I think 2024 was more than anything just really surprising.
Yeah.
With how competitive it ended up being as we got past that first third of the season. I guess you could make the same argument here that we didn't really think Max was going to be in the hunt all the way to the end. I don't know. I felt like last season had more of the excitement factor. This season definitely had its really good moments, really tense moments, but I feel like the racing just this year in general maybe wasn't quite as good. F1 keeps running to this problem where the further you get into a set of aerodynamic rules, the harder it gets to overtake. It's got to be because, the teams are really honing in on making the car as best as it can be. And the more you hone in on that perfect balance of aerodynamics, the more sensitive it becomes. So it gets shittier to run in dirty air. and then it gets harder to overtake, and you're relying on big DRS zones and all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that the racing this year kind of took a bit of a hit in terms of like the excitement factor there, but there was plenty to play for.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the general racing, I think the biggest contributing factor was the fact that I think a lot of these teams solved Pirelli. The tires just wouldn't drop off. Like you used to have, you could tell when someone had overstretched their tires, and there were so many races this season where we said, well, everybody just puts on this set of tires and runs around and nobody ever drops off. Well, that's your number one way to kill the entertainment factor, is to have all 20 cars on basically the entire same set of tires with basically the same amount of deck, because then you kind of line up in constructor order, and that's pretty much what you get. The teams that can be a little kinder to the tires are going to do better than the teams that it can't. You saw your qualifying get incredibly compressed. I think we had 3 or 4 times this season where it was the closest qualifying margins between P1 and P10 ever. I don't know that it's going to be a long time before you see anything like that again. So it's 6 to 1, half a dozen of another. There's the Formula One that can be exciting when you have groups of battles throughout different portions, where you have the front runners, and then you have a clear defined midfield, and then you even have your back markers all fighting amongst themselves. And if one can breach, you get a midfield team that gets up into the top, or you get the backmarker team that suddenly has a moment and can threaten not only the midfield, but maybe the guys at the top. Those are the great moments, like the double Alpine podium last year in Brazil. Who called that one? You never would have anything like that. So I think it's a lot of different factors. But I think in the end, we probably do need, for an entertainment factor of the sport, a rules reset, because I think we've solved Pirelli in this set of cars. And when you do that, it just kind of kills the Sunday show. The practices and the qualifyings are entertainment television. I mean, that's where if you want to see some mega laps and lap records and all that stuff, we saw a lot of that this season. What you didn't see, though, was the amount of tremendous on-track moves beyond maybe the first lap, because it got so much harder to overtake.
I agree for sure. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. And he says, hi, team. Well, that's the last time, one of the last times the DRS, sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. That's the last time the DRS that we're going to get this season, and I'm going to miss that in the new season. Lando has finally done it, and thank God this isn't like 2021. That race was good. It was good for Lando holding on. It was good for Max getting the win. I think pretty much everyone else was just kind of riding around waiting for the season sign off. That was something we haven't really touched on today, is that this is the last Grand Prix that featured DRS for the foreseeable future, starting next season. We talked about before, Formula One is moving towards a full-on active aerodynamics system where they will be able to adjust the front and rear wings for high and low downforce configurations at any point on the track that they want. And the new true pass aid will be the manual override mode, which is a little bit more akin to the push to pass that they have in IndyCar, where
kind of like the old KERS. Yeah,
exactly. Instead of reducing the drag of the car, you are allowing the engine to output the engine system to output more power, mostly from the battery system. So that is going to be the pass aid going forward. And, I'm kind of interested to see where that goes. I think I commend them for trying something new, because I kind of beat on DRS at times for kind of being a little bit of an easy button for overtakes. I guess it kind of goes beyond what it was originally intended to be, but it did end up becoming that overtake aid. I think, what was I saying? That Lance Stroll is the last driver to make an overtake with DRS, and Kimi Antonelli is the last driver to push the button for DRS.
The first one to ever push the button in DRS?
Wasn't it Jensen Button?
You saw it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you did see it.
I'm up on my
I was thinking I was going to give everybody else a bit of trivia. Jensen Button in 2011 was the first driver to ever push the button on DRS. Kimi Antonelli will go down as the last person to push the button on DRS. In what has been an aid that is unfortunately something that was necessary. It came in after, the Yas Marina 2010 race where Fernando Alonso could not get past was it Petrov or something like that,
Yep.
and could not overtake, and Sebastian Vettel actually overcomes a larger than 12-point deficit and wins the championship. So we needed a solution for that, and then it
Yeah.
became clear that when we went to the bigger wing cars, you definitely needed some sort of an aid, because otherwise the cars were just too wide. And so now we're
They're
going
too
back
wide.
on.
They're giving up too much in dirty
Yeah.
air because of
Yeah.
how sensitive those cars were.
Yeah, the front wings were way too important to those cars,
Mhm.
so we went a different route. We did the ground effect, which then made the whole thing about the floor, and now we're going to this active aero. So, I mean, from an engineering perspective, I think it's going to be very fascinating. I think we are going to have to deal with non-really sexy lap times for the first few rounds until these engineers really kind of can dig in and develop and use their cost cap for car development. I do think you're going to see the return of true upgrade packages that make significant impact on the championship again, where your first European round is going to be very significant because it's probably going to be your first chance to really see some updates. So there is a lot about 2026 that I'm excited to get into. That said, I was thrilled that we got the 2 good years out of this one that we did. I mean, Max was so dominant in 23, and even in 23 there's turned out to be some really interesting races, as it kind of turned out, even with Max winning. So it got better than what I thought it was, especially after the first year.
We always see the lap time. Well, I guess with the exception of when they went to the 2017 rules, where they first went to those bigger cars with the intention of lowering lap times. We do tend to see the lap times get a little longer when they go to new regulations, just because teams are trying to sort things out. And I'm thinking we're going to see that next year, because they are going for that downforce reduction to start off with, to try to slow teams down a little bit in the beginning. To your point, Dave, about thank God this wasn't like 2021. I mean, if it was like 2021, it would have won. So I can't complain.
I mean,
I wouldn't be complaining too much.
The only part that I'm glad about is this didn't end up in a steward's decision. It didn't end up with 5 hours after we all sat down and all the fans left to finally figure out who had won the thing.
Yes. I am glad it was not controversial.
Right. It was decided on track. It was done fairly. All the cars passed tech. There's no hanging question about this result, which is the thing that I am thankful for, particularly as a coverer of these races, because I'll tell you, the Vegas thing took probably a couple years off of my life waiting for that thing to end so many hours after what was already going to be a late night. And then the next, it literally took, I'm not kidding, it took me like a day and a half to recover from that, because I am not as young and stupid as I used to be and able to bounce back like I was in my youth, where I'm like, that's no problem. You sleep until 10 and then you're fine. No, you can sleep till 10. You're still not fine.
Yep, I agree. Thank you again, Dave, for your email. And our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, Andy, you're going to be disappointed hearing this from me, but I feel a little unfulfilled after that one. I love McLaren, but as the season went on, I found myself in Max's corner cheering on the impossible comeback. It didn't happen, but I'm still happy for Lando and his family. He is deserving of the championship. No arguing that. But that race sucked. We really needed the 2026 regulations and Pirelli tires to step the F up, because the fun factor appears to be diminishing a bit of late. Yep, that goes to the conversation that we just had about how Pirelli tires have been solved, that these cars are getting harder and harder to overtake. You're getting everyone on the same tire strategy, and the deck has been solved and all that. So, again, I'm cautious. Get a little tongue tied again. I am cautiously optimistic for the regulations next season. At first, I was kind of like, I don't know about this, especially with where they're going with the engine setup, the power unit setup, and how we've heard all of this stuff about, well, we don't know if they're going to have enough juice to make it all the way down the straights at some tracks. There's been talk about reducing the power output for the race compared to qualifying to make sure that they do have enough juice to make it all the way around a lap. I'm still a little worried about that part, but I do think that the new ways that they're trying to, encourage different ways of approaching a lap, different, it's the whole active aero thing. I do think it's all very cool, and it's going to give the teams a new problem to solve, a bunch of new problems to solve. And I think that in itself will make things more exciting because teams are going to be figuring out things at different rates, and you're going to see these big upticks in performance like you're talking about when we get upgrade packages and whatnot. I am looking forward to the next set of regulations. I just really hope that they end up working pretty well.
But here's where I am buoyed, where in years past, if you weren't in the power group of 6 teams and you didn't like the regulations, you really had no power and you had no voice. That's not the case now. With the cost cap, with the fact that all 10 teams are all represented when they make these rules changes. And what I am buoyed by the fact is that if this rules package turns out to be something that we don't like or the racing is bad, they're not going to waste time trying to eke out something that isn't going to work to prove a point that they were right to go to do this. If it doesn't work, they're all going to hit the same button at the same time and go, this doesn't work for us, got to change it. And then they're going to get in a room and they're going to do it, and they're going to do it again. Now, you might have to deal with it for a year or two, but that's if we get to the worst case scenario. And I'm not there. I do want to see I'm not going to judge a book by its cover until we get there. Yes, compared to if you take a driver who's used to these ground effect cars and put him in that new car right now, they're going to say that it sucks because they are so used to this immense level of mechanical grip that they're just not going to have. So you're going to watch and you're going to see drivers sliding around, and it's going to get kind of ugly, and it's not going to look as metronomic and as millimetric perfect. Monaco may be a bit of a challenge again.
That's good.
Right, which is a good thing. I mean, there are things that I'm nervous about with the rules, for sure. But there's also a lot of things that I just know how these teams tend to go. And if we got through the 2014 ones where we literally had cars popping engines on their formation laps to the grid in Melbourne that year, we can get through pretty much anything. So we will get there, and they will continue to solve it, and we'll hopefully it leads to some better racing in the future.
I agree there. And to your point, Mr. Formula, about finding yourself in Max's corner. I mean, I've been there all year. Been there 4 years.
No, I
definitely was cheering on the comeback. I did find myself thinking today before the race, I'm like, well, of course I want Max to win. It will be so monumental to have that, that much of a comeback, 104 points behind to the championship in a third of a season would have been just insane. It would have been cool to equal Michael Schumacher's 5 consecutive championships. But at the same time, I was kind of wondering, thinking to myself, well, that's, kind of the, other than fastest laps, that's the last really big record that Michael Schumacher still has. And that's definitely one that's really, really difficult to overcome. So I am kind of happy he gets to keep that record. I'm also happy for Lando. I mean, can you imagine how soul-wrenching that would have been to lose it here after the mishaps they've had over the last couple of races and this huge comeback that Max had and this huge comeback that Lando had? I mean, we forget he was like,
34
over a race distance behind Oscar 2/3 of the way through the season, and he made a big comeback himself after thinking that he might not be able to do it. So yeah, I can't imagine how much pain that would have caused for him and for the team and everyone had he not been able to do it. So from that perspective, I'm very happy that he got it over the line. Like I said, Max has 4. Max himself said he didn't even really care too much. He's like, yeah, I see that trophy. I've got 4 of them at home. I'm just doing this for fun, pretty much. So I am satisfied with the way things ended up, and I'm going to just root for Max again next year.
Well, and I was going to say, I get the point that you're making there, and it is something that I saw that was noticeable for me when we were actually at Circuit of the Americas, how much usually our section had been pretty dominated by Checo fans. And he was the one, like, it was Max's team, but Checo was the draw for that crowd. And to me, I noticed it had changed a lot in the amount of support from, I think, just the neutrals that Max got this year. And that was, to me, that was very noticeable. yeah, the McLaren fans showed up and they did their thing, but the Max fans showed up and did their thing too. I was glad that I didn't hear about the fans going at each other like it had been in some other years, which is positive. It certainly had gotten a little
I mean, be
weird near
careful of
the end.
social media. That is still a
Well, yeah,
cesspool.
yes, yes. We're going to talk about some of that. We're going to talk about some of the things that I saw and read in the lead up to this weekend that made me really want to get away from this sport for a little while. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm thrilled that Lando was able to close the deal and get this done. I also need a break
Mm-hmm.
from
I
this
agree.
for a little minute. I still love it, but it got very hard to watch and to read, and just the stuff that would have been written had this not gone this way. I don't know that I would have had to deal with it. Obviously, I just don't know that I really would have wanted to at that point. But I understand the mutual respect that a lot of people got for Max. I think as a guy, he's matured. He still has that other side to him that can sometimes come out. We've seen that. We talked about that at length. I'm not going to disparage him here, but when he's on, you saw it. I mean, like I said, I think this is the best set of driving over a second half of a season and he didn't win the championship, but it was that damn good. And it had to be that damn good to even get here. That's the amazing part. Like, it could have been even better. Yeah, just what a privilege to watch that guy do his thing this year.
That part I agree with 100%. Thank you, Mr. Formula, for your email. Thank you, everyone, for your emails.
Yep.
As Andy said, we love communicating with you guys, getting your feedback. It makes it actually, fun to do this, because otherwise, as Andy said, we kind of just be talking to the wall, hoping somebody's listening to it. It's cool to know that there's actually people out there listening and enjoying it, because we enjoy it too.
Yes, and I do enjoy. It's stupid, but that little blue bubble with a 1 in it when somebody clicks on a media post of ours or clicks on a new episode post or whatever it is, and when that's out there, it's like, oh, somebody realizes that we're here and gives a crap to actually click on it and take a minute out of their time, and then you look at the listening stats and you go, okay, well, there's people out here who actually do listen to it. So if you don't interact with us, that's fine too. If you just enjoy the stuff for what it is, we're glad that if we have
But if you
entertained
want to
you,
interact, we're here.
right. If we enhanced your life or got you through a minute in any way, we're glad that we were here. So anyway, we will move on to our awards. We will start with the rubbish. Cody, I will let you go first here. What you got?
All right. So my rubbish award isn't directly from the race, kind of more of some of the fallout. And that is the rubbish of the million billion what ifs. That's all I see in the Formula One media sphere right now. Is you're going to run into this because of just that tiny margin of victory. Is what if Max didn't see red in Spain and get himself a penalty and lose a bunch of points that way? What if Max, what if Max didn't get crashed out by Kimi Antonelli? What if Max made his second place in Mexico City or Brazil, very close margins? Conversely, what if Oscar Piastri didn't crash out in Azerbaijan? And a lot of this seems to be unfairly pointed at trying to make Lando's championship less valid, is what I've seen. I disagree completely. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, the what ifs didn't happen. What happened is what happened. And Lando Norris had enough points to bring it home. So by that logic, I think he deserved it. He really should have deserved it a little earlier. He kind of, what if Lando didn't get disqualified from Las Vegas? Well, then he would have won like a race ago. So, what if Oscar Piastri didn't get fucked in the Qatar race? Like, you could do this all day, and it really does kind of drive me crazy because, the what ifs could drive you crazy. At the end of the day, it's not what happened. You have to just accept what's happened. You have to accept that Max and Oscar didn't get it, and Lando did get it, and that, he really did kind of deserve. I shouldn't say really kind of. He did deserve it. And I think a lot of people are beating up on him for no reason.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't react much to those types of folks anymore, just because it's not worth engaging. Because I think when you're trying to do that, that's what you want. You want somebody to come at you, and you want to have a online keyboard warfare for whatever that's worth. And I've seen too many careers, I've seen too many times when people engage in that it goes sideways and you don't know where it finishes and nobody knows where to draw the line. And the next thing you know, sometimes there's police involved. So it is not worth, to me, getting into any type of online shoving match with anybody about whether or not you think Lando is a deserving champion. The fact of the matter is he's the champion.
It's just sports.
Right.
Just enjoy it.
Right, exactly. Like you have to, and that kind of goes to where mine is. Mine is, can we tone down some of the sensationalism now, please? And I don't know what was actually real or not real about it, but I read something about an Australian Parliament member talking about McLaren bias in government freaking records and reading it into the record in the Australian Parliament. I'm like, really? Come on now. I mean, I am all for supporting your guy or gal or whoever you want to root for. I'm okay with you being intense in the moment. But when it gets past, there's the barrier of, like you said, it's sports. It should kind of remain in that thing. When it goes beyond that,
reasonable.
Yes, it's just becomes tiring to read when you're looking for facts and news and this is all you get. It becomes very, very difficult to understand or to try to sift through what's real, what's not. Just from my perspective, I just hope moving forward, it's cars going around a racetrack. We can be passionate about it, we can love it, and we can feel it in our bones and all that. That's great. But if you can't, and I kind of came to the conclusion this morning where it's like, you know what? If we're not good enough without a world championship, you're never really going to be good enough with it. So that's kind of where I'll leave it. And you can say whatever you want to say. I thought some of Lando's interviews actually about that, where he kind of confronted it in the post race, were great. Where he just kind of said, you don't have to like me, but I am who I am. I did it the way I did it. And I've got the world championship. That's kind of the end of the story. All right. So we'll move on to our analysis paralysis. Cody, I'll let you go first on this one. What you got here?
All right. My analysis paralysis is that Red Bull seemed to be throwing in the towel a little bit prematurely by not taking that second pit stop that we talked about. They left Max out on the one stop. And I mean, to be fair, for getting the race win, that made sense. He had a really big gap to Piastri that it became very clear very quickly that Oscar wasn't going to be able to overcome that, despite having fresher, softer tires. But, you know, if they really, really wanted to do everything in their power to win the Drivers' Championship, it just, at that point, it made sense to me. You can get, Red Bull has some of the best pit guys that there are. They had the margins to take that pit stop, come out in front of Piastri with fresher tires, and then you're closer to the guys behind you to try that backup scenario that you really couldn't do earlier. It did seem to me that maybe they just felt that wasn't a valid strategy anymore because they were worried about Piastri potentially getting by. But as I said earlier, way things stand right now, you're not going to win anyway. So you might as well take that risk, do everything you can to win the championship. And that part I was a little disappointed by, that they weren't pushing it to the absolute limit to get this. They eventually seemed to just succumb to the inevitable and, hope that something would happen. Max even came on the radio at one point and said, is Leclerc catching him? And GP was pretty much like, nah, not really. And that was kind of the end of that conversation. So yeah, I found that to be a little bit of an analysis paralysis.
Yeah, I don't know. They certainly thought about it. It was clear from the radio transmission that it was definitely talked about. I think that given the gap between where Lando and where Charles was at the time that they could have done it, they had maybe about a 3-lap window to really kind of, if they were going to do that, they basically had to cover right when Lando pitted, because it was the only time where they breached the pit stop delta. And if you were going to do it, you were going to have to bring Lando back basically almost to Oscar to DRS, which was 4 or 5 seconds. And then you were going to have to hope that was going to back Lando into Charles by another 4 or 5 seconds. So it was going to take there was some setup time that was going to have to happen to do it. So I got it. Like, I'm right here with you. I'm like, I was surprised that they didn't at least try it, because I thought that would have been like, if you're going to empty the tank, like you did throughout this entire rest of the season, you were the last team to stop car development and all that other stuff. And you were clearly emptying the guns for a run at this thing, and a run they made. I was surprised with you that that didn't happen right there at the end.
I'm kind of poking holes in my own analysis paralysis now because I'm sitting here thinking, well, if he did bunch it up, then Lando could just overtake Oscar. Well, George Russell wasn't really in the picture of this race, which was kind of unfortunate for Max as well, because it
Well,
looked
that would
like
have
he was
been
going to
the
maybe leader.
the more qualified foil. And I think George had a bad lap one, and that kind of set him back. And then he was more.
He ended up like 25 seconds behind Leclerc by the end, though. He was not having a particularly great race.
Whatever. Well, he was complaining about a long brake pedal early, and I have a funny feeling he was probably managing that. It just probably just didn't get a whole lot of play. It'd be interesting to see, like tomorrow when we get the expanded radio, which it will be appointment for me to listen to, whether or not that something like that gets mentioned, because I have a funny feeling he was managing. He had to have been. All right, so we'll move forward into our dark horse of the day. I'll go first. For a guy who sometimes we forget, so sometimes is even on the Haas team. We've talked a lot about Ali Behrman and the great second half that he's had, but Esteban Ocon really didn't have a great second half, but he did today. Comes home, P7. It's not enough to get Haas any higher in the constructors, unfortunately, but I thought it was a good effort for him, for a team that it has to scrape by with what they got. I thought they've got a lot more out of that car than I thought they were going to do, and I thought they had some flash moments this season. To Ocon and to Haas, dark horse for me this race. Cody, what you got?
My dark horse is going to go to the stewards for making a sensible penalty call for a change. We do give them a lot of shit throughout the season, throughout the years, about making penalty calls that just don't really make sense. I guess you have to give it to them when they get it right, although I'm still going to give them shit by making them dark horse. Yeah, this one, it really made sense. I would have been beside myself if Lando received any penalty for the pass that he made on Yuki Tsunoda, because it truly wasn't his fault. It really didn't even make sense to me that he was under investigation for it. Clear heads prevailed. Yuki gets the penalty. Lando does not. And it all made sense for a change.
Yes, for once in a while, cooler heads, common sense prevailed. What we all thought we saw, we really did see. But it was a tense few laps where I'm like, okay, they're ruling on the Yuki thing. Now the next thing is going to come the Lando ruling. And
I love that they didn't even tell him on the radio, too. They didn't even say that he was under investigation for anything. And that totally makes sense. Like, you don't want to bring him out of his mojo.
No, I mean, at that point, the only thing they said was right after it happened, Will comes on the radio and goes, we're on it. We saw it. We're going to take care of it. And Lando didn't even respond to that. He just kind of got back into his rhythm and went back into the rhythm there. But and to give him that information, and unless you get a penalty, only is going to serve to make an already tense situation more tense. So the right move was to not tell him in that case, in case you had something to deal with. And even if he gets a 5-second penalty, it was something you could manage. I would wonder if that would have led to, let's say he gets it. I don't think they make that second covering off a stop of Leclerc and they tell Lando, now you have to push it all the way to the end. And then the marker is always flipping Oscar and Lando and at the end. But luckily, none of that even comes into the discussion. We can if and but, like you said, till we're blue in the face. It doesn't happen. What happened, happened. The stewards got it right. Thank God. All right, we'll move into driver of the day. Despite me wearing this outfit and the hat and everything, I got to give this to Max Verstappen, not just for this race, but for an incredible second half of the season, man. That dude is a dude. You don't always have to like him, but goddamn, my respect level for that guy and what his racecraft really is. Even seeing some of it live and in person, he's a true talent. And it says something to me that we got him by just that much, but we got him by just that much. So Max is going to get my driver of the day.
Pretty much had to pry it from his cold, dead hands at the end of the day here. My driver of the day, it goes without saying, is Max Verstappen. He did, up to this point, he did everything that he could to try to win. He got the pole by some margin. He won the race and never really looked in jeopardy. So he gets the driver of the day for that. If we want to expand it, because it does feel a little weird not mentioning Lando, who won the championship in this conversation. So if we want to expand it to driver of the year, that is certainly up for debate. I'm thinking Max, just because of what he did with clearly inferior machinery, especially for the first 2/3 of the scenery, 2/3 of the season. But Lando's the one who brought home the hardware, so we have to congratulate him for that. It is, as we said, well-deserved. 7 wins. We have to remember that just last year, Lando finally got his first victory, and he's gone from that last year to getting his first championship this year. So very happy for him. Very happy that he was able to make this happen after so many years of dedication to McLaren. And look forward to see how he does next year.
Gonna throw a stat that I never ever thought that I would actually be able to say. Of the group who came in together, which was Lando, George, Charles, the last one to win a race out of all three of them turns out to be Lando. And the first one to win a Drivers' World Championship turns out to be Lando. Just a strange
like that one.
little bit of irony there, but damn. But for the rest of this, for the second half, to me, Max was the guy to beat. He was always the guy that I was marking. Just some of the pace, the management of the pace and the deployment of the pace when he needed it is something that I know, even as a Lando fan, I want him to learn, because he's just got that extra instinct. Oh, I just need to go a little bit faster here. Or, I go out first and I set the marker and I dare you all to beat it in qualifying, where everyone else is kind of waiting till the track evolves. Max just goes out and sets a lap. It's that kind of stuff. But it's a fun thing to debate now that the championship's over, and I will look forward to debating it in the future. Because I don't think he's going away. I think maybe next year the car might not be all that great, but he's going to drag it. Whatever that car is going to have, he's going to get out of it. That's for sure. All right, so we will move, before we wrap it on up, into our predictions. Cody, sir, you absolutely wiped the floor with me this weekend yet again. The predictions game is kind of taken the same arc as the championship. I got it done. I'm not ending it in style by any stretch. You got the pole sitter. You swept the podium. You called it. You got Max in P, Oscar in P2, and Lando in P3, and that is how they finished. You got the fastest lap time, and you also got the prop bet for Fernando Alonso. I do finish with 1 point. I had the wrong thing that I won. I won the quali time. That's what I got. That's my only score on the weekend. I do end up winning the thing 12-8. There were some weekends we weren't able to do the predictions, but it's been a fun game. It's interesting kind of how we each kind of approach this. And this will be something that will be fun as we continue to move forward in the show. We're not going to give this one up by any stretch. I'm not going to make a trophy. Maybe we'll make one for next year. We'll have to design something with our outlap logo. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I want to spend any money on it, but it would be something that, like,
you don't got to spend money on it. I know a buddy who's big into 3D printing. Let's see what I can do.
There we go. We can get an outlap trophy that can sit on one of our mantles, and then we have a ceremony where it gets passed from one to the other.
Pass it off
or something like that. But anyway, that brings us to the end, and it's such a weird feeling, because usually the end to me always kind of builds up, but this is probably going to be our last recording for the year. First of all, to you, man. Thank you for doing this with me. It's been you show up all the time. You are prepared. You are ready to go. It's been fun. It's been fun learning our dynamic. I think we have clicked in a way that not a lot of duos necessarily can. So it is a lot of fun to talk this stupid sport sometimes with you. But thank you to you. And like I've already kind of said before, thank you to everyone who watches, listens, tweets, Facebook messages, all over the place. We would not do this if it wasn't for that, because, I think the internet can be a great thing. One of the best things about it is the connectivity and the fact that we can have conversations with people like Rachel Fleming, who is literally a whole ocean away on the other side. And we're talking, and we can jive on a lot of the same things. We were literally kind of holding each other up the last 3 weeks on Twitter with each other. So on our personal accounts, so I appreciate all of that. But to anybody who watches, who listens, thank you for being a part of this. Yeah, we will be back next year. I am fascinated to see where these new regulations go, who's going to be good, who's going to struggle a little bit. We're going to cover it all. But Cody, any final thoughts before we hop on out?
Just to reiterate that I am satisfied with how things played out. I think pretty much everyone got just about what they deserved in a good way. I mean, and I'm really looking forward to the shakeup for next year. It's funny because after the last few seasons and this season, I'm at that feeling where it's like I'm ready for a break from motorsport for a little while, and then I catch myself this morning being like, "Ooh, there's highlights for the Formula E stuff out," and I know. By the end of January, I'm going to be jonesing for some Formula One.
Well, we don't have that long to wait. I think the first test is the end of January. So, I mean, we're going to have car reveals, and unfortunately, it's going to be a closed test. But that'll be
It's gonna
me.
be really grainy pictures.
Yeah, so
of
that means
cars
we're
from,
gonna
like, half a
have the
mile away.
equivalent of weird, strange images of cars going around and 30-minute recaps. But we'll be there for all of it. We'll find out how everybody gets on with these cars. Yeah, but for now, I mean, I do need a break. I can just tell you, I need to enjoy the holidays. I hope you all enjoy the holiday season in whatever form of holiday you celebrate. Keep your family close, keep your friends closer, and enjoy each other's company. It's been a rocky year for me, kind of health wise and personal wise, but I mean, we're all kind of better for it. In the end, I have a new niece that is just the absolute apple of my eye that just makes me feel all the feels. And my sister sent me a video of her today, and I was already an emotional wreck from this morning. I see that, and I'm another 5 minutes before I can redo it. So for everybody out there, that's the stuff that matters. Take care of yourselves out there. We will see you next season until 2026. As always, may all your laps be fast.